This is Slick Sam Sells You, the show where we sell you to advertisers because that's the entire point of YouTube if you didn't know. We also chose possibly the worst time to do this experiment because due to economic hardship, YouTube is running as many ads as possible and apparently it's driving people crazy. Anyway, we originally kicked this thing off with the rule stating that we would not play the same game twice. Well, I am now violating that rule because when we played Genshin Impact, we saw that a lot of our advertisements became for Genshin Impact. Now, personally, I don't see what Genshin Impact gets out of this, because if we're playing Genshin Impact, we are already advertising the game, but I think that maybe YouTube is just kind of double-dipping there and getting their money out, even though Genshin Impact gets nothing. I mean, they're corporations, they're evil. Speaking of evil, it should be worth noting that Genshin Impact insists on having kernel access to your computer for their anti-cheat software, and they are a Chinese-owned company. It's free to install, so it must be bloated with all kinds of hidden malware, I just have to assume. Anyway, regarding our last video, we tried to do Capcom's Monster Hunter, which prompted Capcom to say that they own the entire video. In the past, I might have been a little annoyed by this, but I feel like so few people make original content these days that I can't really blame Capcom for wanting to claim what they own. I mean, it's whatever, probably a lot more YouTubers are benefiting from Capcom's advertising than Capcom is benefiting from YouTubers. YouTube, after all, doesn't add the same value that it used to. Now, that aside, the problem for us is that they stopped us from running advertisements, mercifully. Which means that our prior system of choosing the next game doesn't work, which is why we're going back to Genshin Impact among other reasons. Now the other thing is, I want to see if we get a bunch of Genshin Impact advertisements again, and if we do, we'll try another game, and then see if we still get tons of those advertisements. If it turns out that playing the game gets you advertisements for the game, which is worthless for the company, then it would turn out that Capcom is actually very well justified to turn off our ads on the video about their game. Because they are already being advertised, and they don't want to spend their ad money on video footage of the game that they are trying to advertise. So that in mind, let's skip over to a completely different thought. Last video we asked you guys to look up Joe Biden and we were going to see the results. Now my theory was that you were all going to see a bunch of different results depending on what Google thought your political leanings were, but it turned out that we mostly saw a lot of stuff from CNN and kind of more left-leaning news. Now the kicker on that is when I looked up Joe Biden, we got a bunch of curated results and stuff like that, so this was something that Google clearly looked at and they said, we're gonna screw this up, and they intervened manually. So part of me wants to keep on going and search for something new, but I know that we're gonna have to look up something that's controversial enough to destabilize the country, but also obscure enough that Google hasn't directly intervened already. And the other thing is, that's not really very fun to get into, so I don't want to have every video just be us trying to look for stuff that makes us sad. So we'll just keep our scope narrowed to the advertisements for now and cool our jets on this other stuff. So, here's the rules. Remember, don't click ads unless you're interested in the ads, don't try to fish for ads, don't watch an ad unless you're interested in it, you know, yada yada, don't do anything out of the ordinary. You can have your ad blocker on if you want, it's okay. Just tell me what ads you saw if you saw any ads. And now, before I eat up any more time, allow me to hand things off to my friends, Ray, Peyton, and Taylor. Take it away, guys!
Hello everyone, my name is Taylor.
And I am Ray.
And you're in a spiral of ants, yes.
You can't remember where you're going to the Genshin Impact.
I don't think anyone's gonna get that reference, Ray.
What do you mean to tell me that thousands of people haven't listened to Neil Cicierega, internet genius of our time?
No. Internet genius is not hot with the kids these days.
I really love this warning here. If you black out, please stop playing Genshin Impact.
If you wake up next to someone strange the next morning and you don't remember how you got there, yes, do not play Genshin Impact anymore.
What if alcohol was involved?
Well, the core money-making mechanic of Genshin Impact is gambling, so if you're the type of impulsive person to drink until you can't remember what you did, don't play Genshin Impact.
I feel like anytime you can't remember the last 4 hours after you did something, you should try to moderate more.
So here we are again, we're back to this game, even though we said we'd never do it again.
Yeah, I uninstalled it. I didn't think I'd touch Genshin Impact again, but... yeah.
Well, I'm sure we're gonna do just a great video with all that passion.
Well, thing is, I mean, you think about this type of stuff, like what makes a great video, what brings in viewers, and it is so detached from intuition these days. By the way, hello, Stanley, Mr. NPC standing around. I have the ability to question whether or not you're really Stanley, so I assume you're not really Stanley.
Very standard plot savviness right there.
Yeah, I mean, you never get to question someone over stuff if you're not supposed to. Anyway, though, you know, I've been thinking about, like, where all things have gone since we first started off on YouTube, and one thing that's happened is that we have had nothing but a decline in viewership for a good while now.
It's because you suck, Ray. You gotta put in more enthusiasm, yes.
No, I don't think that's
You
it.
suck, Ray, yes. You suck worse than a vacuum cleaner.
You suck worse.
I'll try
How
to flip
dare
it around.
you?
You suck, yes. You suck worse than your mom.
Well, maybe I would hope that would be true. My mom's getting up there in age.
Isn't she married, though?
Let's not this is a dangerous road. Let's end this now.
I mean, if she didn't, it would be bad for her marriage,
Okay,
right?
so the thing that I'm trying to say is that a lot of online, actually all entertainment is now about being accessible to the ground level, right? Because you gotta maximize your audience. Video games are expensive to produce, and video is cheap to produce, but it has to reach 1 trillion billion people to be profitable still. Your mom sucks 1 trillion billion people, yes. Stop it! I am gonna backhand you. Do it! Do it! I am gonna backhand you. Shut up. Okay?
All right, no more jokes about how much Ray's mom sucks, even though we know it is
Oh my
enough
God!
to
Come
support
over
her
here!
marriage.
Come over
Okay,
here!
ow,
Come
stop,
over!
Stop! I wasn't even the one you initially threatened. I get a free one too.
You have had plenty. You have both had plenty. That's enough. Your mom hasn't had enough. Ow. Anyway, so it's kind of an interesting evolution of the internet because starting off, it wasn't really profitable and there was a lot of nerds online, right? So we kind of focused our entertainment on things that nerds found interesting. But then, as it grew, everything got more and more accessible and less nuanced. You kind of got into this like, well, we gotta make it so even small kids can get into our content. And gradually, everything kind of walked away from being individually neat. You saw a lot less independent artists and stuff like that, and you started just to see more broad-level brand sharing. That is, you'd see vlogs, basically, but they would be vlogs that you didn't have to have any background knowledge to understand, or were sometimes even better if you lacked background knowledge. And video games have also gotten to be that same way, like back during the PlayStation 2 era when everything was more affordable. You used to see a lot of creative ideas, but now, for example, let's take the health situation with characters. It used to be that health would be based on medkits or whatever, so you'd lose health and then you'd have to find an item to restore it. That's how it used to be, but then they realized that they could do a sort of regenerating health thing, and then that made it easier for everybody to play games and to beat them. And that just became insanely more popular because if more people could play and beat your game, then more people would buy it. And speaking of buying things, like Ray's mom, nothing is for free, it's time for more ads! Now remember the rules, don't click on ads unless you're interested in them, don't force yourself to watch, yada yada, all that stuff, here we go.
So what are you trying to say, Ray? You don't like the lowest common denominator?
Well, it is occasionally okay to go for the lowest common denominator, you know, with like mom jokes or whatever. But I'm just saying that it's not always the best at all times.
Well, that depends on who's asking.
Well, alright, what I am getting at is that George Carlin had this joke where he's like, okay, so consider the average person, right? That's the middle of the bell curve. And then like maybe half of everyone is below that. So think of like how dull an average person is. Half of everyone is worse.
Well, where do you sit on that average, Ray?
I don't know, I'm not getting into it. I'm just saying that, like, when you try to work from, I don't know, like, I want to get everyone from the middle on down. What are we even doing in this game right now? Yes! That is what I'm getting to. I'm saying I don't even really know. We're grinding levels, and it's really easy to grind levels. Everyone can do it. And that is, I think that's the appeal of Genshin Impact.
Well, your little cherub is having a conversation with this gay pirate. What is there not to understand?
They just keep talking, and then I gotta confess, at the end of this, I think he tells me where I'm supposed to go next, but I wasn't really reading it, and then I couldn't figure out how to advance the quest.
So you're at the bottom rung of that bell curve.
No, I'm too smart.
I don't think absolute failure is what too smart means.
All you had to do was listen to the twink pirate, Ray, yes! The, what is it, a men's underwear pirate? Is that what they used to call him?
I mean, that's kind of an old school slur.
I don't think it's a slur. I don't think you can call someone something that ridiculous and mean it maliciously. I mean, you can, but you have to be a terrible person to ruin something so fun. It was a Grand Theft Auto 3 joke, yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was a play, Pirate in Men's Underpants, I think. Anyway, though, when they introduce this guy, he, like, walks in with a slow clap. It's so overdone.
He's got such a beautiful long ponytail. Do you think that they were, like, trying to hit the Fujo audience? Or were they just reusing the female models to save money?
I mean, why not both? Like, I bet that they looked at that and they were like, oh, I know who this guy's gonna appeal to. No, the Fujos need some kind of convoluted story full of tired story tropes, yes. Like the forbidden love. Maybe that's later. Right now there's only one of him, yes. Well, there could have been two if I'd chosen a male main character. Maybe that's what I was supposed to do.
It's really weird to see a game that has map markers, but then they tell you to go somewhere like the Adventurers Guild and there's just nothing.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I found this place called the Adventurers Guild, but I think it's actually just an adventurer's kiosk where they hand out rewards. And I don't know if there's another building somewhere, but there were no logs there. Or whatever it is I'm supposed to find, it isn't there.
Well, regardless, I think I finally understand the purpose of Paimon at this scene. Because you go to the guild and then Paimon has all kinds of quips and input about it. It's like, oh, because the character has no voice, Paimon speaks for you.
But she's like this grating child. Who's just like, oh, wow, I'm Paimon. Hello, friends.
Well, you've been saying it yourself. The game is supposed to be accessible to kids, so the stand-in is, of course, a child.
Oh, man. No, of course. She's that boardroom character where they sit around and they're like, well, our target audience is about 9 years old, so can we get a 9-year-old in the game?
And they're like, yeah, sure, I guess we'll have the guide be a floating 9-year-old.
You know, NPR, like I was saying, I didn't know that they did game reviews, but apparently they do. And they did a game review on Genshin Impact, and they have the same problem I do, where they're like, I really quit paying attention to what everyone was saying very early on, but I see some of the appeal here.
What is the appeal, Ray? Yes.
Well, the same as with a lot of leveling games, you do thing, you get level. I mean, I guess also it's like open world, so you're wandering around a mountain and then you stumble into, like, one interesting thing, occasionally.
Well, what was NPR's amazing take on Genshin Impact?
They said it was like Breath of the Wild, which is good if you like Breath of the Wild, except they liked it better because they could change characters.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, and I didn't play Breath of the Wild, so I don't know if that's a fair assessment or not. So thanks, NPR, I have no context. But I played Genshin Impact, you know, it's free to download, so...
So we did play the game without recording, because we believed we weren't going to come back to this game. Let's tell the audience what we skipped, Ray.
Well, there was 3 dungeons, and that's where we got 3 of our characters. Each of the dungeon was themed around an element, because you can use elements to do combos in battle, and it doesn't seem to be very deep as a mechanic, but I see people online insisting that it is, so I don't know if it becomes deep, or if people are just saying it becomes deep, I don't know.
Oh, look, an ice wizard, yes.
Yeah, this is one of these things where I was just wandering around trying to level up my adventure rank because I have to advance the game, and I stumbled into this guy, and I thought, oh, cool. And he does this thing where he can, like, chain freeze you, and then you die, which made me realize that the game's battle probably revolves around doing enough damage to, like, beat the enemy before you make a really dumb mistake.
And he's water or ice themed, so you switch over to this lightning lady.
Yeah, but I hadn't, like, put any junk on her. I kind of forgot to put trinkets on her. And it was funny, because when I first got her, like, everyone else had trinkets on, and so they had, 1,000 health or whatever, and then she had, like, 600, and I was like, oh, it's really underwhelming. Her attack's also kind of slow.
Wow, you really got your ass kicked there, Ray, yes.
Yeah, he just kept hitting me with these ice bolts, so I just kept freezing in place. And that's not the last time this happens. I actually get trapped by another boss type of monster later on. So, my theory on this game is that probably defense doesn't matter a lot, like you don't do tanking. Especially because if the attacks can stop you from moving and you just get trapped, I think that it's really like a DPS deal, where if you can do a lot of damage, then the battle doesn't last as long, and you don't have as much time to make a mistake and get trapped.
Oh look, it's a big guy with the big shield. What else he do?
Mostly just runs at me while holding a shield, and then you can set a shield on fire or destroy it. So far I gotta say, the bow and arrow, really kind of my go-to weapon. It's safer, and does a lot of damage, and seems to stop a lot of the enemies around here.
Well, that's the thing about ranged weapons, isn't it? Like guns versus swords. Even if you put a lot of magical power on a sword and let them hit really hard, guns are just safer.
Yeah, there's another game I've got called Mass Builder, where they're trying to make, like, melee weapons work in a robot fighting game, so they just made the guns really useless.
I mean, that's all you can do, right? Like, to overcome the safety of a ranged attack, you just have to make it not do any damage.
Right, to avoid having an incentive. I don't know, I thought maybe we'd get more spells or something, and then, like, the main character could attack at further range. Maybe we still will.
I saw someone saying they were gonna add Albedo from Overlord to this game, yes. Albedo, Alfredo, it's all Italian to me, and it's time for an ad. So remember the rules, everybody. Don't click the ads unless you're interested in the product. Don't watch the ads unless you're interested. Yada yada, all that fun stuff. Here we go.
Okay, so for a little context on the Albedo thing, that's weird because Albedo is a character from a manga, or it's a light novel, I guess. I don't know the difference.
Well, a light novel is reading, whereas a manga would be pictures.
Okay, well anyway, I've read the light novel, or at least some parts of it, but I eventually lost interest. Albedo is like this level 100 titty succubus.
Okay, so now we gotta roll for this character, yes.
Well, I don't know. Why would they put her in this game?
Well, you gotta promote your work somewhere, right?
Is Genshin Impact really doing that well internationally? Is it seriously like a thing that people are trying to get into?
Well, logically speaking, they are just mopping the floor on the Google ads, right? Which means that they're spending a lot on promotion. So, even if they're really not being enjoyed by people playing the game, you gotta think, they're doing so much promotion, if you could just get in on that and catch a little backdraft.
Yeah, I guess that's the point. My other question is Overlord seriously doing well? It's kind of this weird, like, nerd self-insert power fetish fantasy?
All you did was string a bunch of words together. That doesn't mean anything, Ray.
Okay, I mean, alright, so imagine yourself and you're like, oh man, if I were God, I would punch Stephanie. That girl called me fat.
I mean, still no real context.
Well, it's that, except it's about this Japanese businessman who becomes a level 100 lich and then uses it to, like, I don't know, screw around with the level 1 commoners. It's kind of dull ultimately, but sort of a fun concept to start with. He joins the Adventurers Guild and then effortlessly climbs the career ladder. It's such a Japanese businessman kind of fantasy, yes. Yeah, he's like all powerful. So he just like dresses up as an ordinary knight and then joins the Adventuring Guild and he's like, I'm really good at this. And then he gets to be boss.
Well, but he's already boss. Where's the conflict?
There isn't. A lot of conflict is the problem. There's kind of there, and I know it has fans, and I get what they like about it. But, I mean, the critics of the series also have their merits.
Well, what do they like about it, Ray?
Alright, so the fact that he's a Japanese businessman is where the amusement comes from, because he's faced with all these, like, super powerful wizards and fantasy people. And then it keeps coming back to the fact that he's not actually a very smart guy. He kinda, like, he should probably be working fast food or something like that, but he's like, well, I have to manage my entire, like, the whole government of my nation. And he sucks at it, but his underlings just kinda make it work.
Well, now that just sounds like real life.
I know, right? It's almost like, imagine if I was born rich and I just got to be in charge of the most powerful company in the world, or in this case, a Zaibatsu, I guess. A Zaibatsu Ramasan, yes. Yeah, Senpai-kun, and, yeah, you start at the top, and then you join another company, but in disguise, and rise to the top there, because you already have the money from another company to back you up. It's crazy.
Well, alright, Ray, so you've broken down the formula. Maybe you can make your own. Like, just write the story of pretends to be different person businessman.
I kind of want to now, to be honest. I gotta put a pin in that. Maybe I'll come back to that someday. It's not as cool as a skeleton, yes.
So a character from this light novel, they get in this game.
Yeah, but the shtick with the characters, they're supposed to be way overpowered. So it would be kind of like if you got One Punch Man in this game, but then he couldn't one punch everything. Like, it misses the point.
The point is advertising.
Yeah. I mean, you know, look, we need a few nerds in the world to start calling foul on some of this stuff. When level 100 character shows up, she better be level 100.
It's probably a deal breaker. I mean, you don't get them in the game at all if you have to make demands like that.
So anyway, we're fighting a giant robot, and, it's kind of neat, because I just accidentally walked into a boss fight, but he's a little spongy, and... You're probably doing it wrong, Ray, yes! Well, I'm trying to switch between the characters and set up some kind of combo, but the only one I really know is that water plus other element equals stuff, and it doesn't seem to make that big of a difference. I'm doing more damage by just shooting the thing in the eyeball with arrows. You got your ass kicked again! Look at you, Ray, you're a disgrace! I started climbing up a piece of garbage and I couldn't figure out how to climb down in time. Is this what a top-level Genshin Impact YouTube channel would look like? Yes! No! Well, what does that look like even? I haven't looked.
There's probably a boss or something that people are interested in.
Oh, no. I'll bet you anything. It's probably like those loot crate channels that open loot crates on stream, and then everyone gets to see what it is, so it's like, oh, I get all the hype of watching the gambling, but I don't risk any of my own money.
You know, I hear about professional streamers trying to write that off as like a business investment on their taxes.
I would be too afraid of that. What if they came with an audit and they were like, explain this? And I'd be like, I don't even like this game, okay? I needed the hat.
Man, I wonder if that's gotta have been tried before, right? Like, suppose you bought a bunch of lottery tickets and said it was your business, gambling?
Well, actual gambling laws are really strict, and these kind of gachapon games don't fall under that, at least in the US right now. I bet the other appeal for people watching is that if you get a character that's like supposed to be really rare and strong, then everyone gets to see you use it for a while. Actually, you can write off gambling losses, yes, but the amount that you can write off cannot exceed the amount that you won in that year, yes. Oh.
So, if you paid for a bunch of loot crates, and the items in the loot crates had no real value...
I mean, maybe that works, so long as you don't write off more than you made.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely contact a tax lawyer before I decided that, but maybe that totally does work out.
Basically, you can buy as many gambling tickets as you want, yes, but it's not a business until you're making money.
Well, if you're making money from your streaming and your YouTube, then there it is, that's a business.
So, could you scratch scratchers tickets on YouTube? Is that a thing?
You guys are dumb if you think that no one has thought of gambling on YouTube before. Yes, there's tons of channels dedicated to that. They even already had a big ban wave controversy, yes?
Well, I guess you've really made it on YouTube if they had some kind of policy change that completely screwed up your channel.
Yeah, it means you are doing something good, yes.
So anyway, it looks like after all that trouble, I think we've gone from Adventure Rank 7 to Adventure Rank 8. 2 more Adventure Ranks and we could do more story.
All the fun of an MMO, but by yourself.
And you can pay money to make the process faster.
Truly the future sucks, yes.
Well, I mean, on the upside, in an MMO, it wouldn't be fair to pay money to get better at the game, because that's pay to win. But in single player, it's okay.
The future sucks, yes. Well guys, it's time to wrap up our video, and on that note, it's very difficult to sell Genshin Impact, which you failed to mention the name of, or how people could access it at any time during this video. But let me just say, Genshin Impact, do you like green fields? Do you like blobs? And maybe some kind of troll creature? What about kernel-level access to your computer? Well, look no further than Genshin Impact. It has a multiplayer, it has swords, it has girls. What more could you possibly want and not ask any further about because the details are a little murky? Genshin Impact, get yours today for free. Asterisk. Anyway, there might be one more ad at the end of this video, so if you want to watch it, feel free. You don't have to. Just remember the rules. Don't click ads unless you're interested. Don't watch an ad unless you're interested. Yada yada. You guys have a fantastic night, evening, day, whatever it is.